what?
So the first thing I wanted to touch on today is the millage rate. We used a millage rate of 8 the last time, and that's what we submitted to Bay County as our preliminary millage rate. It can change, you guys have the power to change it. We used it the last time. If we continue using it, the expected revenue from that will be 2.8 million, or a little over 2.8 million. And, we have to adopt the millage rate by September 17th. And, I'm guessing that we could have a discussion on that figure today. Cause that accounts for about 90-95% of the general fund revenue.
If I can just chime in
Yeah.
for a second
Yeah, sure.
on that. We did have a deadline, August 4th with the state, and with that, we were required to, submit a proposed millage rate on there. It is proposed. But this information will go out as far as, trim notices to all the citizens. So what they're gonna have, and those are mailed out August 24th, so in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have certain information that's gonna be given to them to review. And that information is gonna have, as far as the basic information, of course, it's gonna have their property values on there, we're gonna be concerned about their specific property taxes. But what's gonna be on there is the proposed millage rate of 8, which is the same as last year. Within that, the details of it, last year, as in values of January 1, 2019, which would have been, received in 2020's fiscal year. The total property values were $307 million. Those that were certified from the county, as in 1/1/20, are 351. So that's the increase from last year to this year. So one number that they're gonna have on there is the rollback rate. And what that rollback rate means is if we collected the same amount of taxes as last year, then that mathematical rate is actually 7.0107. So the information that's gonna be on this trim notice is this is proposed rate at 8, this will be a property taxes. If it's rolling back, it will be this. And what rollback means is if the city wanted to, hypothetically, was to receive the exact amount of taxes as they did last year, then that would be the rate based on the increase in property tax values. So.
What was that rate again, Zeb, what?
7.0107, so I wanna make sure we stop for a second, because all the citizens are about to get these, so you might be getting some phone calls, right? So, that rate is gonna be on there, 7.0107, and the way this is, laid out, is we have last workshop, this one, I think 2 more scheduled,
Yes.
and then September 17th is a date that we were required within a very restricted time frame between September 3rd and 18th, and that is a public meeting. It's gonna be it's scheduled for 6 o'clock on September 17th. That will also be on that notice, and at that point, that's the forum by which the public can input thoughts about that, thoughts about the rates, and if it's gonna be this, and that will be, that time for the citizens to chime in on that with this information. So we're sort of leading up to the justification for, in big picture anyway, this coming together to be a budget that makes sense given the normal operations and all the extraordinary things going on with, obviously, with the hurricane. And then at that point, there will be, and it's laid out specifically of what has to be done on there, but there will be it will be advertised, and then there will be another meeting by which there will be an adopted budget on it. So it's a process, a good process for us to work through this information, get where we can come together on making this all work in the details, and then eventually, the public will have a forum by which we can go, and then eventually we'll officially adopt a millage rate. But that millage rate it's gonna be on their form, they're gonna see it on there, but it will be up for a discussion on there during that, so I just wanted to.
Now,
Stop
once
for a
you
second.
set that in, we can't, that locks us into no more, we can come down, but we can't go up.
Well, officially on there is a maximum rate, so nothing's locked in there. That's the proposed rate by which the citizens can then get involved, so I don't think that's impossible to increase that on there, this point it's just
Well,
proposed,
it
within the
takes-
maximum amount.
Whatever goes out on that trim notice, if you end up adopting something higher than that, you have to get justification. You can't just arbitrarily go higher than what you put on the trim notice.
Okay.
But we don't plan to do that anyway, but that's one of the, whatever got sent out. So 7.017 represents the same amount of dollars that we collected last year.
Based on increased
Yeah,
property
right.
tax,
Yeah.
that's
That's
right.
right.
And that's a number that will be highlighted on there. You know, there's different columns that are there, and that will be one of them on there, so. Anyway, I'll let you have the floor, guys. Want to stop for a second so we can understand how
Well,
we're
you,
doing
you,
it.
you set a time, September the 17th at 6 p.m., is that what you said?
Yes.
That's when the public hearing is.
Public.
That's when
That's
the
the
public
public hearing.
comes and gonna ask us, why are you spending this money?
Exactly, and that's still tentative, but that's the time by which, we don't have to adopt a military at that point, but that will be the discussion.
Yeah, that's the
And
first public
what we're
hearing.
trying to work towards is the most refined budget that we can, given all, this is the point, is to get everything out in the open as far as, you know, next year, what we're planning on doing, what we're required to do as far as the hurricane on there, so that we can know, you know, to be able to justify to the public.
Okay.
And then the maximum allowed here is 9.8120.
Where are you getting that now? Show me how,
It's right here, that's not on the budget, this was
Oh.
sent over by the county. So this is what we're giving you all the information on as far as the insurance and everything. But in the budget, we calculated the ad valorem tax at 8, and we reduced the amount collected by 3%. So basically, when we did our calculation, we subtracted 3%, say 3% of the citizen did not remit their taxes, it would fall at 2.7. So that's for the ad valorem taxes.
all right, Monique, help me now. I'm looking at this sheet, 20, adopted for ad valorem tax, on the very first line is 2,397,000.
And that's for 2020.
That's
And
right.
we did not, those are not actual figures, because as we mentioned before in the last meeting, 19 and 20 has not been audited, so we cannot put the actual numbers
really.
out there until the auditors come in and actually said, okay, this figure is good to publish. So these figures in 19 and 20 are what was adopted in those years.
Now,
When-
for the council, just because I've done it so long, that's at a real disadvantage for us.
Yes.
That unaudited numbers creates a void,
Right.
for lack of a better word. So you can't look at what you spent or what you're getting in, you're just gonna have, because of the audit and the condition.
Yeah, and I just want to, I know we're aware of that,
Yeah.
we're working on polishing, but I think, you know, it's been somewhat crippled in terms of making decisions for the lack of information. We're aware of that, I wish we could get there quicker, but, you know, as we continue to polish this information, then, that will be available.
Well, all we can do is the best numbers we have, but that's all you can do,
Exactly,
that's all you can do.
that's
So
what
I,
we
but
present, that's what we present.
rule of thumb, we would have those audited numbers.
That's
Rule of
right.
thumb, you would have those.
Right.
Next year we'll have, I mean.
You will definitely have them next
Yeah.
year. Our
Yeah.
auditor.
We're working towards that, I mean, the
Yes.
auditors are supposed to be out here in a couple of weeks, so, and then by the time we're
24.
done, we're gonna be in another fiscal year, so we are, you know, backed up on there, but, you know, we're aware of the lack of that information, how crucial that it is, and working towards getting there.
Okay. All right, I'm on. Gary, what'd you do this
I
spring?
promise you I ain't touched it.
I saw.
I did it. I did it, but
All right, how are we to follow? All right, so now that we have a proposed number, how are we, how are you gonna want us to follow you? What are you, what are in the teeth of this thing? Are we gonna go through every line, or we just, help me understand how we, what the process is gonna be?
Okay, so Keith and I agree that the biggest thing in the revenue aspect of this budget is the ad valorem taxes. Cause that is what bringing in majority of the revenue for the general funds. So,
And just to chime in there, I'll say, I know there's a lot of new people involved here, me and Monique and Mario and some of the council as well. So on that note, I would say that it's up for discussion how detailed we want to get. If you want to keep this big picture, then we can do that, and we can save some of the details for, back in the office working with staff. So I think we're open up to ideas about how we can go in, but workshops are run because they're for that benefit to ultimately get to that rate.
Aren't we gonna stay pool cash? We're gonna stay pool cash for this year?
yes,
Well, when you say pool cash, I mean, I know we have, one bank account in there, but we have the dollar
Well, to
amount.
me, pool cash is where we don't put down, we don't know, if something comes in, we need some water pipe, we buy it.
That's
We
right.
we don't separate it out and,
Yeah,
we're working for
but
it.
right, yeah, that's the point that I wanna make, is we know that the information's raw right there, and I hope to, and it's gonna take some time, unfortunately, but I hope that, when we can get there, we can come in and say, this is the exact amount that we have, is this portion of pool cash we can use on these different purposes.
And all
We know
monies
that's where we
become,
wanna
all
get.
monies become available except for enterprise fund monies and dedicated fund money.
That's right, and then the
Okay,
rest.
so
is
that's
the general
pool
funds.
cash.
Right,
Then I think, for me, and these newer ones that had, first, I think big picture is definitely gonna be
yeah,
the most important way, because until you can fine line the departments,
right.
it'll
right.
just sort of be a crapshoot.
And I agree with that, and based on the circumstances, that's why, we've approached this, and I would guide the council to, based on the current information that we have, expected revenues and expenses, to pass a budget based on that. And as this new information becomes available for carryover balances and such, then things can open up in terms of, budget amendments and such as that information becomes available. But as of right now, I think that's the best way to approach it is this way. And I do want to point out that, it's obvious when we have a major hurricane, and there's a lot of unknowns in terms of what the city will be responsible for in terms of financing that on there. We know there's a matching part, we know that's potentially changing in terms of the matching part on there. And if you look at the main summary that we started on, by design, there's a blank line for Hurricane Michael. And Monique put fun instead of fun. I don't know if she's trying to be funny. I'm gonna assume that was an intent to try to put a little humor in there.
The line did
She
not
found some
go
fun
out.
in there. But the point is this, is that is left because we are gonna set up a separate fund specifically for the hurricane, for monies in and expenditures there. And we know there's a matching part that has to be transferred over there. So I think the best way to approach this is to know that there's an unknown, a sizable amount that needs to be transferred over there through the years, and that what we're calling a surplus is really what's available, which is really not much, to fund that. For example, last year, and I don't know how we came to the numbers, I wasn't in the room, but $281,000 probably was just balance the budget knowing it was an unknown, and we're sort of approaching it the same way, is that there has to be some amount in there to fund that unknown through the years, and you can't do it all at once, but the more cushion we can make there knowing that unknown, the better, and it's currently, just around $200,000 in there for this particular year. So there's not, I don't wanna look at it as surplus, that's what's available right now to fund that massive project, obviously.
Okay, I fully understand.
Congratulations.
Can we help you with, you want us to?
Well, no, I just got a question that before we leave all this.
Okay.
We adopted 8 meals last year,
Mhm.
talking about doing that this year. Triumph gave us $523,000 last year. As of now, we don't have anything for Triumph. How can that equal out?
Well,
Us
that's,
being able to do 8 meals this year, 8 meals last year, but Triumph gave us over $500,000.
well, and that's that is, if you look at them side by side, you get a lot of details, that's the big number that jumps out, obviously.
Mhm.
Last year, we had proposed on there, we had, as far as adopted, 523,000, I don't know. I don't know that we have any money coming in for that, so, but the answer to your
You can't
question.
take on grants until.
No, you can't.
Yeah, but that is, if you're comparing them side by side, that is the biggest difference in here in terms of comparing two revenue line numbers on there, because if you look at total revenue, even at 8 mils, we're proposing less, and that's why. As far as that, lowering taxes, and get all the information out there, if we keep the same millage rate, we're talking about an extra
Four.
$350, somewhere, $328. If we keep the same exact millage rate on the new property tax values, there'll be an extra $328,000, which has gotta offset the fact that we don't have the 520 from before. It's probably-
Well, evidently Triumph has made no, I thought they were gonna do it for 2 years, but that, evidently they didn't. The majority of that money was used to make up, the whole purpose of that was to make up from our property depreciation from storm. You know, they said they'd make everybody whole, and we also got some money from the state to help with the fire department.
That's right.
And that money isn't there. So somebody in this budget has cut somewhere to make 8 mills work all again, because that's 523, and I forget what the state gave us, 300, wasn't it, Sam?
No, they gave us 300 for the build out of the fire department and the retrofitting of the fire department was upstairs and so on.
Okay, so,
And another 720,000 to run the department for the year. But then last year, we were in theory in the budget last year,
that's right, that's
and
right.
that
you're right.
money then would in theory have stayed in the general fund, and we were paid for by the state. So
And that's the information that we wanna refine, because, there's insurance, there's a number of things that are in there, and as we refine that, and we can, I think, make, better
So-
decisions about that there.
In the big picture, you're saying we can run the city on 8 mills and have $194,000
To fund.
to fund,
Yeah, I'm not gonna call it surplus.
No, that's right.
Yeah, that ends
and
up
that,
being the plug.
and that accounts for, Monique, all the departments, their input about what they need for gas and fuel and tires and,
Well, general fund,
This is for general.
General
Yeah,
fund.
general
Yeah,
fund.
yeah,
All the
yes.
yeah.
that's right.
And then, also, this here doesn't have our, our surplus from last year in it, which I think, as of right now, we're not comfortable putting a number out there to say, okay, we bring in this amount of fund over from last year, or, you know what I mean? So this is just looking at all the expenses and all the revenue for 2021 without that surplus in consideration.
All right, I asked last time, what's the capital improvements in this budget again? How much?
The only capital that's in general fund is $125,000 split between 4 departments for a new backhoe. And out of general fund, that's only road and canal, which is 40.
That's the only capital we have.
Yeah, other capital is under enterprise, so under general fund, you just have a new backhoe.
So I think that's something
And
to discuss, if there's anything that needs to be, not hurting me related anyway. That means we get a different deal with the match, but, no, there hasn't been very little.
Most of the capital will be under enterprise, not general fund.
Well, hopefully, most of our capital too has been covered by FEMA. Hopefully.
That is the goal.
And that, I know that's the goal. So that's, if that's all we got, that's what I call good.
They have one in, Rosen Street for.
Yeah, it's road department, canal department, it's got a break.
Yeah, for the backhoe where they split
You
it.
know, it's split between water, sewer, road, and canal.
And then the other.
I mean, that equals 70%.
So I'm just gonna go back up to the revenue.
Okay.
Where we are at.
Y'all know the capital on there. Water, sewer,
All right, I don't know what plan you have, I'm not trying to derail you, I'm trying to just, in the big picture, if somebody has cut, I mean, to make up those differences and hold it at 8 mils, someone has obviously fine-lined and ground those numbers down to bare minimums for the departments to operate on.
Well, I know under Public Works, me and Tommy, we went through and we fine-lined the power consumption, the water consumption, everything that fuel consumption, instead of just guessing it, oh, we're gonna spend 30,000 on fuel for road, we actually fine-tuned it down, this is what we're actually
That's what I'm
spending.
saying, somebody
We actually
said
went
that.
and crunched the numbers, that's how we track our departments now. So, under the Public Works departments, we was actually fine-lining a bunch of the departments down.
Yeah, and I think as far as general fund, Monique and Mario have put a more, a more polished number on that. And,
Yeah.
Let's discuss
Yeah.
last time. some of the-
More realistic, this
Yeah.
is where we gotta
And
live.
hopefully we continue to get more polished, but as we get
Yeah.
better information, then that accounts for some of the differences in that.
Tomorrow with this budget, we're not getting any state triumph that we're aware of. The revenues
Correct.
over and above what we normally get.
Over, correct. Again, keep in mind, as the FEMA money comes in, it'll start going into this. So,
Yeah, I'm
one of the things that we have to do for 19 and for 20 is actually import all those monies that came in 19 and import all those monies that came in 20, and then show the expenditures within those capital projects. Those were all capital projects.
We hope to have that, if we refine this, we'll have a tool which will be a different fund specific to Hurricane Michael, because the biggest thing that comes up in these discussions is separating general operations of the city with the hurricane recovery. So that's the reason for having that tool and having those separated as we get that refined.
Again, even within that audit, when the money came in for the water plant, that money should go into that special fund in the water plant,
Right.
and that expenditure should go back out, but that'll come through the audit procedure. It isn't shown on those, what's called adopted budgets for 2020 and 2019.
So there's a comfort level at 8 mils.
Yes, and then it does give us, extra cushion that, can make up for something. As Keith said, it's 300,000.
As far as the last year.
Yeah, compared to last.
The building permits went up quite a bit too, so we're getting a little bit of help there,
Yes.
Yeah. There's gonna be more.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna listen, and I understand now, I'm,
Is everyone comfortable with the revenue aspect of the budget? Any questions?
Not yet.
And the budget, we're never gonna have exact figures to work from. It's a projection and, conducting researches and to try to hit it as close as possible too. And the next thing that we can bear in mind is that, as we go along too, this is a learning process for everyone, and we can amend the budget to show, as far as like expenses concerned, we can amend it.
Here's 16, 17, 18, 19, and we've got 3 years that are actual.
Yes.
But really, it's been further than that back before we really had great accounting, right? How does that play into this?
It's not an easy answer.
As
Yeah.
an
I mean,
accountant.
they were audited is the answer to that. They
They were
were
audited.
audited, for 18.
Right, but then still, with them being audited, the audit the company still in question.
Well, and also that they, you know, when you're doing a financial statement on it, they've got materiality on there, what they're looking at. They're doing it for the purpose of not missing something within material level, which is, you know, gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars. For this purpose on here, we hope to refine the information, have the information, make decisions on. So they may have not been, in detail polished enough to make a decision about the amount of supplies for different departments and things on there as part of those audits on there. But
Okay.
we at least feel comfortable with the totality of the numbers in 18, given that there's an audit that's been completed on that.
And we feel really good about what we've done so far in 20, because we got good people taking care of stuff better. And now we've got all this stuff coded, it's gonna be easier to keep up with and easier to put in the right spots.
Yeah, and I recognize, especially changing, you know, the discussion last time was with the salaries on there, putting them in the right spot on there. That creates the first year comparison issue. You
Mhm.
realize that when you do the next comparison issues, but if we get that straight going forward, then you have just got one little blip and everything else is apples to apples on there. That's where we wanna get, but unfortunately, there was a blip to get there.
What's the blue line?
The blue lines are the amount that will be, they transfer out, so those are the restricted funds. And they all will add up to this amount.
Oh, okay, that's where you got the
Yes, and I
194,
decided
I mean, the
to get the-
284.
Yes,
Got
So
it.
explain that a little bit better for me.
so I highlighted all the blue.
Okay.
Because those are the restricted funds that will be transferred out. of
So,
the-
in other words, they're restricted, the money came in for a certain specific
Yes.
item,
That's
and
right.
that's what goes to it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
and accounting wise, we'll get it refined. Really, a transfer out is to a different fund. So this is, we inherited this format. I think it's good for at least discussion purpose to show that that's not its earmarked for specific purposes. It really needs to be, the expenses need to be put in the individual fund, and we'll get that ironed out there. Because what transfer out really should be, you know, like transfer over to the Hurricane Michael Fund is a transfer out to a different fund.
Yeah.
Those are all still technically general fund on there, but I think it makes a better presentation to show that those are restricted for those purposes. And then there's a schedule in the back here that shows what those purposes are.
And we can go to that schedule real quick.
Okay, so, let me write it down for you, tell me something else. So transfer out goes to specific, that's specific,
Dedicated fund.
dedicated,
Okay.
dedicated.
For those purposes.
So if you guys go to page 19,
There you go.
And the infrastructure is an infrastructure surtax, which, you know, given the fact that they had a rebuild for infrastructure for the city, you can make an argument that's available also because of the amount that's being spent anyway, you know, as far as infrastructure.
Okay, now I'm clear, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move past revenue. Is that what I heard you say earlier? If we're good with revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
everyone good with revenue?
Well, the best we can do.
So we have the elected official that was adjusted, thanks for the correction last time. I was so not thinking of it. I was like really shortchanging it, but I'm sorry. So we have that, and there's, as you guys can see, there's not a lot of changes to this. The only major change is the insurance, which was not being accounted for previously. And that's for 765. And the workers' comp, based on the current rate, that is the number that is, and that's pretty close to the number because I actually got those figures from the insurance company, whatever rate will go up by, and that's what's used to calculate the workers' comp. So as you guys can see, it's pretty much higher than the last couple of years, but I mean, I'm confident that that's the right amount.
For workers' comp?
Yes.
So Daryl gets mad at me, hits me,
Yeah. You get
so I
workers'
be
comp.
under workers'
I
comp.
didn't know we had work.
Yes.
I didn't either, I didn't know this, I didn't know city council members had one.
Yes.
But
We've always had?
It worked for the, yeah. There's a rate, there's a specific rate for you guys.
I wish that was all I was paying in my little bitty business.
And then you guys come here and
Gee whiz.
anything can happen.
What, is that insurance, what is that 765, is that errors and admissions?
That's the liability insurance.
Liability, okay.
Mhm.
That's
For
what you
being a
need,
city
Jerry.
employee.
I didn't know we had such fine things.
Okay,
Alright,
I'm good.
We got a raise, Jerry, we didn't even know it.
we go down to the, city administrator. As you guys, as I explained the last time, this is 40% of his personal cost, because we do a distribution for the city clerk, the city administrator, and the general government department, which includes Mary and I, so,
So the 38.9 is 40% of what he actually,
yes. Then, the last time you guys wanted to give him his insurance, and that's added to that amount. And there hasn't been any changes apart from that. The city clerk, the same thing, this is 40% of her personal cost, because the other 60 is apportioned through the enterprise fund.
We can do the clerk through the enterprise fund?
Yes, the clerk is 20% goes to water, 20% goes to sewer, and 20% goes to sanitation. As the city admin, and then Mary and I, which is considered the general government finance.
But we can take clerk salaries out of enterprise fund.
Yeah,
The justification being that their efforts are, you know, to do.
Okay, I'm just asking, that distribution thing is a little new for me, so I'm not sure how all that works, but as long as we can do that,
yes, because
that's good.
the city clerk, the city admin, we all do everything for the enterprise fund. You know, Mary does the payroll, do all the AP stuff.
Right.
So that's why we do that distribution for,
so do we have a document that says what's enterprise, what's general fund, all that? Who comes out of any of that? Or do I need to write it down as we go through?
Enterprise fund,
Enterprise fund,
that's just water, sewer, sanitation.
yeah.
okay.
And then when we go down to the enterprise fund, the total personal cost will include, for example, in the water, that will include 20%.
They're gonna have their own budget
Yeah,
there.
okay,
When we get back, they'll have their own sheet,
Okay.
enterprise fund.
all right.
As long as you keep up with it.
She can do it. All right, moving on.
Then page 7, that's legal, which is Nick cost.
He's not here, we can talk about him.
Well, I see we went up $20,000 in the budget. Did we do that because that's what we spent, or y'all just decided we're gonna spend that much, or how did we do that?
I looked at the actual that was spent in 2019 and 2020, and that's the reason for that amount.
I'm assuming there's a lot of hurricane-related
Right.
activity in there, so.
And some of this does get reimbursed through the
You didn't get a raise then.
the contract's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just more time involved.
You know,
Yeah,
but
it's
even
just
the
more
more
time.
we use it, the more.
That's just from other communities, I can tell you that's really very reasonable for attorney's fees. Considering some people don't think we deal with.
He's being used a
You
lot.
got, oh, I know, well, that's just, all right, well, so we went back and looked at what some of the actual numbers, and that's just closer, much closer than 40.
Yes, and I just want you guys to know that even though the adopted figure is there, when I'm doing my 2021 analysis, I look back at what's actually in the system.
So you went back to 18, you didn't consider 19 and 20 to make it?
Now I look at 19 actual figures
Okay,
and 20,
Okay.
that's in the software.
okay.
So we're moving on.
Moving on.
Okay. We have planning and zone, which there hasn't been much changes with that.
And keeping in mind that planning and zoning, they pay a fee to pull a building plan, and they pay a fee for, development order, so it should be a net zero. This is actually, some of this is actual income side too, so we get a portion of everything that gets processed through EPCI, so this is, at the end of the day, if this number goes up to 35,000, it means that EPCI got paid, we got paid, so this is not something that tends to be an expense that pushes us.
Moving on.
So what did we get out of EPCI, do we know? Is there a total in
I
that?
don't get the percentage,
Where is that at?
but.
That's-
That'll be in the income,
revenue side.
that'll be in the revenue side, it should be, where the building permit, see right there? We projected 30,000.
Okay, so, and then, and I just commented, it went up to 60.
Now, the 60 is for legal, not for building.
Am I on the wrong line?
Building permit
Building permit is.
went up to 60.
That's what was adopted.
It was adopted 20,
And we
Yeah.
put 30,
and we put 30 for proposed.
yeah.
And in 2022, there was more permits coming in, so that,
That may be low.
21 may be low, yeah, hopefully.
21 will be
Yeah,
less, a little less than even 2020, because the storm that just happened in 2019 and 2020 probably got a little crazy. So I reduced it down to 30,
okay, so,
so we can get more. So.
yeah.
Well, what page we on now? 9?
So we're going from, go to, yes. So the 9 is the general government portion. The personal cost, that's, 40% of Mary and myself salary, because there's only 2 employees currently in the general government, so,
That's you and,
here. And it's 40% of each salary.
What used to be in here? Just merit?
No, Sherry was a part of the general government, Lindsay was, also a part of the general government. So Lindsay's no longer there, Sherry's no longer there, because Sherry does utility billing, so what we did, we put her in the enterprise fund and distribute her within the enterprise
Okay.
fund.
All 100%,
Yes. expense, cause we don't get that, so. Is there any question?
I'm good. Everybody just speak up if you got.
You okay, Jack?
I did mine yesterday. I went through this yesterday, that's why I'm
You're good.
backing up, what I did understand, but I found out yesterday.
Okay, good.
My fear is sleeper. You know that is? Okay, well, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Fire any issues?
Ms. Cole, are you good?
Okay, in this general government,
Yes,
here on page 9,
yes.
so these are all expenses over here in these columns here.
Yeah.
So what is fuel and lubricants for?
Okay, so even though there are,
Mhm. Good question.
okay, let me see if I can answer this. The general government, do we have any vehicles in the general government now?
Yeah.
So I guess we can remove
We
that.
can remove that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at the history and see if there's anything there.
And part of coming here is looking at what was previously adopted. And there were,
Well,
I looked at the actual two and.
we had a police
Wasn't it?
department, so we did have actual vehicles. Would that be where that came from?
No, because
That
the
was a different
Government.
department.
police had a different.
So, but we had to have vehicles or something because
But
of
this is
also.
general government.
The
It's not
only
police.
vehicle that we charge right now to fuel that we do each month is the SUV that's technically assigned to the city administrator, and that fuel technically should be under the city administrators. So why it's under general government, I'm not gonna lie.
And that's- apparently, your prior city administrator used the car. That's gonna be where that's from.
We did have an admin car before,
Okay,
yeah,
Technically, you still do it, once it's over here.
okay,
There is an
so,
admin car.
and it used to be utilized, so.
and then part of coming here is looking at the budget and continuing, so, you know, it's good that you guys question things because.
Yeah, very good question.
Yeah, that helps us polish this off.
Yeah.
I mean, those
So
are,
we
those
can
are fine
definitely
questions
remove
that are
that.
part of the process, so if something looks out of
I
whack
pop,
here.
you can polish that one off.
We
Well,
can definitely.
Well, I got a question on that though. If we have to go to the post office, or have to go to the
Well,
bank,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is an expense. I mean, right now Skylar goes over to Port St. Joe to the post office, she goes to the bank, she goes to the post office, all those trips go to something, and probably the best place for those to go to is general government, so
Mhm.
carrying some dollar figure,
Okay.
and it's a daily trip, it's not like it's once or twice a week, so
How do they get paid for that?
They do
Uh,
reimbursement.
it's a reimbursement.
Yes.
I used to do mileage
53
when I
cents a
did it.
mile or whatever.
we don't have a vehicle they could take, or that's just,
We have a vehicle that they can take, but she tends to take her own.
so the city reimburses her.
Yes. And I think Mary does it and Sherry does it as well.
Why can't we use a vehicle? Don't you think it's cheap?
You could.
Yes, they should.
What kind of vehicle is it?
Does it run?
What kind of vehicle is
We
it?
have,
Does the vehicle run? I don't even know what we
The
have.
vehicle that we have out there currently that's for admin is the brand new 2019 Explorer that Andy went to South Florida and picked up after we passed away.
Then we,
Technically assigned to the city administrator, but he can assign it to whoever he wants.
then we could let
It
them
sits
use
right
that,
on
that's
our
not
rate,
making them
just
ride in
sits
something
out there.
bad, yeah.
We pay the insurance and the gas, I think it'd be a lot cheaper.
Every nickel counts. I mean, if we're gonna save a few nickels,
we'll,
and they're not, we're gonna have to ride in something bad.
I mean, 3 people that use it, Mary.
So also,
Mary,
yeah,
and
well, also, if they have an accident while they're in their personal car, we got a liability issue too, right?
That's
I believe we need to
we're
do
better
better.
off, yep, good catch.
It's just,
Okay,
So then we leave,
You started it.
well, no,
we're smarter than I thought we were, you guys, come on, we're doing good.
I didn't bring this up yesterday.
Okay,
But I do, if we have a car that new,
yeah,
that's use.
yeah, I agree.
there
Nice.
anything else that you guys see that?
Well, I mean, what are the uniforms for?
That you already took out.
I took
That's
it
already,
out,
so
but
that's
I'm
There's
not
nothing on
sure.
that line.
Yeah, I took it out.
uniform.
They used to get uniforms here, oh, general government, no. I was gonna say the,
Yeah, but it's in the
yeah,
fire and emergency services. I guess I'm looking at number 10.
We are number 9.
So we're on number 9. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong
They
page.
would have now, they would have.
I'm getting ahead of us. I know, Jerry. Okay, all right, I'm back.
And what I want you guys to bear in mind too, even though we said 3,000 towards fuel, if it's not 3,000, then, you know, it's not like that money, we still have that money. We're just trying to catch it as close as possible. And it's, for me, with the expense, it's better to over budget on the expense
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, under budget on the revenue, that way it's like a safety.
Well, even if the money is not that great a difference, the liability of them being in their own vehicle would present a lot bigger
It is.
issue than having them in our company vehicle or our city vehicle. I think.
Yes, I do too.
So are we good?
We're good with 10? I mean,
Number 9?
Yeah, all right. 9, I think you.
Marty, you gonna handle the 9 of you? Okay.
Everyone good? Let's move on. Going to 10. 10 is fire. For me, personally, I feel like I want to turn it over any of your questions to Sandy, because getting the expenses for the fire department, I worked directly with him. I let him instruct me on how much he thinks that the expense will cost for 2021. So as far as the personnel cost, I did all the calculation on those based on salary and increase in insurance, retirement, and that's, the new figures is reflecting the 3% that you guys discussed the last budget meeting. So if you guys don't have any question on the personnel cost, the remaining expense, if you have any question on that, then I can turn it over to Sandy, so you guys can ask him anything that you want to.
what are the volunteer salaries?
Basically, they are, we don't, if you notice, we don't have an overtime budget. What we do is we use, fully qualified firefighters, we call them volunteers or part-timers, to cover for, the third person would be the fire and vehicle ISO, to cover when any of our guys are off sick or on vacation, and it's significantly cheaper to do it that way than it would be to have an overtime budget. Because, so it gives us more people to pull from, should we require a much cheaper rate than paying an overtime budget. So in theory, it's a cost saver rather than basically a cost saving device.
So they're basically full-time firefighters working part-time for the city in place of overtime?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
They're not full-time firefighters.
Not full-time
They're not
firefighters here.
full-time firefighters.
They're
Not full-time
They're not
firefighters
full-time
here.
firefighters here, no, they could be
You're
full-time
qualified
firefighters in another department.
full-time, you're qualified
Exactly.
firefighters working part-time for the
Exactly,
city.
yes. They all have firefighter too, and in fact, all of our part-timers are also EMTs. Some, two of them are paramedics, and one of them is actually registered nurse. On top of the firefighter.
So Sandy, you said we got $700,000 and $300,000.
Last year we got $296,000 to do the refurb
Right.
upstairs and retrofit anything else that was required for the fire department downstairs.
Okay,
And then they worked out the budget last year for the fire department, $720,000. And so basically they're given $720,000 to run the fire department for any fiscal year.
which fiscal year?
In theory from, well, in fact, we were looking at the grant the other day, and in theory the grant started in July of 2019 and goes all the way through until the end of September this year, 2020.
So-
They gave us what, 15 months,
Yeah.
in which we can spend that money, starting in July.
So that's a whole lot of money, and then how is that gonna affect us once we're not gonna get that anymore, and then we're gonna start paying it, so,
So last year when we set the budget, we did not know we were getting any of those funds.
mhm,
So the budget was passed last year, including the fire department within the budget. Then we got the grant for a year from the state to run the fire department for a year.
mhm,
And the 300,000 was because we basically went cap in hand to say that we cannot afford to rebuild a fire department in the city at the moment. We went straight to the governor's office basically, and the governor set up a special $50 million grant system for specific situations like that, where there were organizations or cities within the hurricane area that needed help. And he was able to give money to those people. So that $296,000 for the retrofitted fire department was given direct by the governor to the city of Mexico Beach, along with another 100,000 that went to the sheriff's office through Mexico Beach for the buying of all the new trucks that the sheriff's office now has running in Mexico Beach. So we in fact got in total 1.168 million from the state last year.
so this 20 that we adopted at 585, does that carry forward then, since we adopted a fee that we didn't know we were gonna get that money?
In theory, the money was collected.
So that'll end up being, as we were talking before, and there's a number of things that happened differently than was budgeted for, that being one major one, obviously.
Yeah,
And then as we refine the information, then we'll end up with, the cash balance that was carried forward, which that would increase it for, by which we can make decisions about what to do.
so we allotted money for the budget,
Transfer to
and then it'll
So
transfer.
we should theoretically, in that vacuum anyway, have money, but in my mind, with all the uncertainties everywhere, that's one thing that goes to the pro column for the, City of Mexico Beach, and then with all the unknowns in terms of matching and all that, so that's a helpful thing there, but we'll find more information on that, but you're correct that that was not technically expended because that was.
Okay, so actually the difference column where it's 5969 in the negative probably is not an accurate number.
Well, that's the difference between what was
Yeah, that's just budget,
last year's
that's all
budget,
that is.
budget and this
Okay.
year's budget on there.
Okay,
As
all right.
opposed to budget versus actual.
So we're gonna know how really all this shakes out after we get the audit.
Yeah.
Yes.
In terms of a budget versus actual analysis, which
Yeah.
is what you're considering.
One other thing we did last year was we look after some of unincorporated Bay County that's close to our city border. And we went to Bay County and we asked them for more money than they were paying the city to look after the unincorporated areas that the Mexican Fire Department look after. They were paying us $15,000 in previous years. And that amount has gone up to $60,000 for last year and maybe $60,000 again for next year. So it's $5,000 a month that we get paid by Bay County to look after unincorporated Bay County surrounding our city limits.
And we're not spending any of our money that's designated for our city for those
No,
people.
before-
Bay County's doing it.
Exactly. Before they only paid us 15,000, we decided that, when I say we, I mean those of
Yeah.
us that were in the budget meetings last year, that wasn't good enough. We went to them and beat our fists on the table and they.
And none of that puts us into any kind of overtime issues that are costing us extra money.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything that's, even if it were overtime over there, they pay, those funds pay what overtime is used.
Well, I mean, we just get $5,000 a month from them for that. But we very rarely if ever get called over to any of the unincorporated Bay County areas, because most of it is not, there's not many people living within that area. They collect their taxes primarily from the land value thereof, and what we're primarily looking at, keeping an eye on things like wood fires and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And now obviously sugar sands, which is going
Talking
on.
about the MST fire.
The MST.
There is a separate line of 60,000 on
Yeah.
page 3 for that now, so.
I got you.
But you'll see the 2020 fund says only 21,000, it actually turned out to be 60,000, but that will be caught up with once we do our audit and so on and so forth. But the check, I had to go chasing for the check this year, they've forgotten about it, and I went to look to see what the amount was, realised we hadn't been getting the money from them, And, I got one big check, and now they're going back to $5,000 a month, payment to us.
Sandy, why are we, in our operating budget for the fire department, we doubled what we have, but yet what happened to that 45?
Okay, well, last year we took out all our utilities because we were in Parker Park. And, at the time they agreed that, you know, what amount of utilities we were using was gonna be so small that it could be used up by the Parks and Rec utility bills. We didn't have any rentals or leases in any manner, form at the time, but subsequently we realized then, or I realize now, that one of the things we do rent is our oxygen bottles, so we've had to put that back into rentals and leases.
But that doesn't, I mean, if you just look at the big ticket items, the insurance is 3 times what it was.
Yes.
That's the way in which the city has basically recalculated the insurance, so I'd have to pass that one back to Monty.
Yes, so, based on my analysis, previously the insurance wasn't calculated properly. And, I went in and calculated exactly how it's supposed to calculate and how it's supposed to distribute between all the departments. And unfortunately, that's the correct.
That's the correct number,
We're looking
okay.
at, because, you know, we have 2 different liability insurance, we have the vehicles, we have infrastructure, and, we got an insurance bill last year for $152,000, and that was a portion between all the different departments. And that's why we have.
Move the mouse.
Move them out.
Oh,
You had thought,
Give it a second.
Now, on the fire department, again, this is more for everybody. When the fire department started, it was done by property assessment. It wasn't on the millage rate. It was done, each parcel of property got an assessment. Well, obviously, after the storm, we couldn't hardly assess the houses because there wasn't any houses.
Mhm.
So we added that's a big part of why the millage rate jumped from 5.61 to 8 mills, was to cover the fire department,
yes.
because it was done by assessment. And I don't know how many of y'all remember, or came to some of those meetings about how the assessment was gonna be worked out and who was gonna pay what, but we went to that because the millage rate, the citizens didn't want to do the millage rate. They thought that was too inequitable. So at some point, not this year, and that's why also we've been able to float through on the budget at 8 mills without anybody
Anarchy.
jumping off the roof, because after we adopted the budget, the governor's office gave us some money. So it gave us a little cushion.
Mhm.
Where you can see as those donations are drying up, the budget's gonna get, these numbers are gonna get more and more and more important to fine tune them, because we're not gonna have, I don't think the governor's gonna fly a helicopter over and drop us another $300,000. But my point is, that not this time, but there's gonna come a time shortly that as we rebuild, that the citizens are gonna, I think we're gonna be wise to go back and return to a property assessment instead of a millage rate
For their fire.
for their fire.
Mhm.
This was not intended to be part of the general fund budget, is my point.
Mhm.
But now that it is, because of Michael,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to, well, you can see what it costs to have a fire department. So it's gonna be important to remember moving forward that there may be another way to skin this cat and get it out of and get our millage rate back down to something people here used to dealing with.
And so, along that line, the assessed property value of what's here in Mexico City, Mexico Beach, city limits, that's 307 million? Is that what I heard earlier?
It was 307.
It was
Oh, so it
307.
was 307,
It's now 351.
so now it's 350.
351.
Okay, million, okay. So, what, prior to the storm it was 307, now after the storm it's 351.
It's gonna get bigger.
Not prior to the storm.
Right,
Last year,
Last year, what was the last year? Do we know a value or figure of that prior to the storm?
I don't have it here, we'd have to.
Anybody want to venture a guess?
this was what you collected was, 1.8 million.
I
so-
do have that number actually in 19. It's about 420.
Okay, so we started at 420, we dropped down to 307, now we're back at 351. So along what you're saying, it maybe in not the very distant future, then we'll be able to justify doing assess.
Going back to the assessment.
Yeah, right. And then all I'm doing is I'm trying to load myself with information so that I can explain this to people that we're almost through this difficult part. The millage rate, we're gonna do our best to get it down. And as soon as our values rise, and
That's
they're
what's
rising
gonna
very
happen.
fast.
That's what it's gonna take.
Right,
And this
Okay.
will probably be the most asked question from the public
yeah, right,
about why we're having to be at 8 mills. Because our property values have gone up, not significant, and not back up to where they were. But if we're gonna keep the fire department in the general fund, that's what it's gonna take to do that.
okay, so 307 was in 19?
They're as of January 1st, so January 1st of 19. was
Okay,
307.
and then 351 now.
351 now.
Okay, great,
January
all right.
2020.
Now, the assessment would be on a house. Not the cost of the house, but a house. Or a business on, square footage or something, Al, wasn't it?
Yeah, like 50 cents a
And
square
then a
foot,
lot.
something ridiculous.
Yeah, it was 50 cents a square foot to a maximum of 4,000 per commercial. It was $356 per residential, and it was $49 or $50 a
Vacant lot.
vacant lot.
How much on a vacant lot?
50 bucks.
$50, okay. That's what they were assessed.
Yeah, there's a formula that's in the ordinance that defines,
And these are just rough numbers.
those are, the 349 was for a single family resident, and is that right, Sam,
It
349?
was between 350 and 370. I can't remember the exact number.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's helpful.
But that won't work till we get enough homes.
Yeah, right, yeah,
We
right,
gotta have enough homes.
right. It takes a lot of 356s to get to $600,000.
So you can't do this, just the cost
And
Okay.
I don't know if you wanted to mention to them about the radio,
Yeah,
that
there's,
increase.
well, we've all heard about the new radio mast that's going up behind us here.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's primarily the 800 system for both the police department, fire department, and the first response system. Obviously, the city has to pay its part of that. The way they're working it out is the number of radios that we, as the city, are using. The only organisation within the city that is owned by the city, such as the fire department, and therefore we will have a cost every year for the next 7 years to pay back our percentage of that, which amounts to about $8,500 a year. And you see it here; it's in the capital expense. That will be reoccurring. It's at 10,000 now until we get the final amount, the exact final figure. But that will be reoccurring over the next 7 years, which is our part of the new 800 system within Bay County.
and where is it? It's in capital expenses
Should
under
be sorry,
6,300.
6,300, improvements OT building, okay, okay.
So that is something that we knew was coming, and it's been talked about for quite a long time. But and obviously, as you can see, we didn't have anything in that particular line for a number of years. But this will be something that will be there for the next 7 years. I believe is how they're doing it there. They're doing it like a loan. So the whole thing is costing $8.5 million to build. within the whole of Bay County, and each radio is X percent of that amount has to be paid back, and we have 15 radios at the moment.
And we're gonna make the tower look like a big pine tree, right?
I don't think so.
Everyone good with fire? Ready to move on?
Move on.
Okay, moving on. And then the police department, which we have it as salary, but really and truly it's not a department anymore, it's not salary anymore, but, I just wanted to, the final budget, we will put it in the general fund. I'm thinking that we should have it split out as well, right?
You could just keep it there and just call it a professional service and just outsource the professional service.
Yeah, I agree with
But
that.
are we planning to like split it between the enterprise and the,
No, it's all police.
It's all police.
It's a contract with the county.
okay,
Police is police, it doesn't have to do with enterprise.
I'm guess I'll explain what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving
I'll
on.
take care of it.
Then we have code enforcement, there's not been much changes, the personal costs include the 3%. Any question? And the other current charges, that $2,000 is because of I took it out, I removed animal care, and I put it under other current charges, because apparently, I think Kathy was explaining that, if they use animal services, they have to pay.
We need to keep a line item for animal.
Oh, okay.
Because we pay Bay County for animal services, but we have to carry something within our expenses to pay.
I
for
didn't
that.
remove it, I just put it under other current charges.
Okay, and that's fine.
I mean, we
If you
can,
just moved it from there to there,
yeah,
we can track it.
okay. Which if you realize too, they have the same account number because we do have a specific, geo for animal care, and that's why I put it under other current charges.
Okay.
Alright. Then, parks. Now, what I did, as I mentioned before, I took care of the personal costs as far as, calculation purposes. The additional expense, I get with the department head, in this case, that's Tommy, to give me, his numbers as far as what he thinks, the department's expense will be for 2021. So if you guys have any question, you can ask Tommy.
Well, we don't have many parts.
But
But we will, we're gonna get them back, we're gonna find them.
currently Pam and Bill probably are doing a lot more cutting and cleaning up
Right.
from the hurricane and things like that. So we still have the personnel, and this is 20% of Tommy's salary.
Okay.
Yeah, we sat down, me and Thomas, and looked at these, and just like Thomas mentioned a while ago, a lot of this stuff we took off actuals instead of estimates. So we were able to trim a lot of this out of the departments that we, it was just, it was gonna be extra anyway. To try to make it, we understand with the situation the city's in, money-wise, to try to make this as close as we could get it, and still, we should be good. We should be, we're not undercut anywhere. We should be, still have plenty of money and probably be money left over, but we tried to trim it the best we could to get actual figures for you rather than just, some kind of an estimate of what they were, that's how we derived all this stuff.
How do we do uniforms now? I mean, we,
Well, Mayor, what a few years back, we were renting them, and that, you probably seen a big drop in
Yeah.
that. yeah, the cost of renting them and the guy picking them up, cleaning them and all that, we went to just purchasing the uniforms. So, I think it comes up, each department is about $250 per person, and that is buying them and we own them. We haven't bought any in the last couple of years, of course, with the hurricane and all that, we haven't, just didn't have the money, and plus, with everything like it is, but this actually come out way cheaper. If
Yeah.
you look at that, we saved quite a bit of money by doing that. And,
I agree. I just
Yeah.
didn't know, I wasn't sure how we did it anymore.
yeah, that's why we did that, actually we get quality uniforms and we get them at a lot less than what we're paying, and everybody, a lot of people didn't wanna bring them in, and the guy, paying to have them cleaned and all that, we were paying that for everybody, but a lot of people didn't bring them in anyway. So basically, they were taking them home, washing them themselves, and we decided this would be the best route to go and save the city a lot of money in the process of doing it.
No, I agree.
Are the bathrooms on the beach, the porta potty bathrooms, are they coming out of this park and rec budget?
When the books get audited, yes.
Mayor, one other thing you're gonna see too, is you look at each one of the departments, and I think Thomas's is probably gonna be the same, and that's on the communications. A while back, our phones were dying, the batteries were going dead in the work phones, and, instead of going through all the process of trying to get new phones and paying all that, we asked the employees, would they rather use their personal phone? And all of them didn't wanna touch their phones anyway. So basically what we've done away with that cost. We have their personal numbers, we're still able to get a hold of everybody just like we did, but we've done away with all those work phones, and the cost of having those. So that's another thing that brought the budget, our budgets down, is the communications part and not having all those work phones anymore.
Good job. All right. General maintenance, is that where we are? Well,
Yep,
general maintenance.
general maintenance.
How many people is it? How many people we have?
2.2 people. We've got Madison and part of Tommy and
Okay.
a pension person.
Okay, so none of these public works budgets include bringing other people in.
This one talks about the potential of adding a person.
Right.
General maintenance,
Yes, sir.
is that reflected in here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, now we have those positions already approved, we're just running short now, is that right?
Pretty much, Mayor, that's right. When me and Thomas got set up, I was building
Right.
maintenance, and they said, we got set up, so actually there was 2 people in general maintenance or building maintenance, and we're down to 1 now. So we are 1 person short in building maintenance.
And that new position is included in
It's in
the
the,
personnel costs, yes.
okay,
Including projected insurance and everything.
okay. All right,
Okay.
ready to go? Everybody good? Roads and streets? What we have here, 2.2?
Here we have 3.2, we have Tim, Andy, Willie, and then part of Tommy.
Are we staying there? Are we staying where we are there?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bobby, I think you asked me a question last meeting about the Christmas decorations. We tabled that, Mayor, if you remember,
Yeah.
to, the budget. In this budget, that that $2,000, for the contract, and then we actually, added some more in for the month of December to run those lights. That all has been budgeted into the road department because that does come under the street and lights. So, all that is taken care of. If the budget's adopted and approved, then, you know, I'll take care of getting the lights, dropped, put back on the poles, but all that is added into this budget.
There you go. Well, that makes it cleaner and no budget amendments and all that, and then we know what we're doing.
Yes, and the only other thing would be the capital, and that's, Thomas explained earlier.
Yeah.
The road department has $46,875 for that, and that number may change, as we talked about, if we get money for that, from the insurance, you know, for the other backhoe that we lost, that figure may drop even more, so, but standing as it is, that's where it's at now.
We haven't gotten any money from, insurance money from the backhoe that got destroyed?
We
Yeah.
should, we don't,
I haven't been told one way or
yeah,
another.
we don't know.
It hasn't been allocated yet.
Yeah,
We
that's
have,
right.
we have insurance money.
Okay. So when we're fixing to get a backhoe, right? When are we gonna get it?
If you guys approve this, it would be sometime after October.
Okay, and how much of that is gonna be from the insurance? How much insurance money did we get?
Gotta look at the insurance. There's $4 million that came in from insurance.
Okay.
We have to allocate all the money.
Yeah,
from
I
the
got you.
Yeah, we just included the full price of it here, so that, you know, anything we get from the insurance, we'll deduct from this, so it'll actually be better. But this way, you know,
We did it
the backhoe we do need, desperately between.
We did it as if we wasn't getting insurance, that way we was covered either way.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
in case we didn't get insurance, we still covered.
This is the expense. The income is a completely different section of the budget. It doesn't really reduce or increase or anything on this budget. It's, the expense is the expense.
Okay.
Are you ready? Or
Okay.
something? If they don't speak up, let her roll.
And then canal, and I think we have employee
In
in,
the canal, you have an additional employee. Right now, we have 50% of Troy, 20% of Tommy. You have 75% of Cletus, and then one full-time person.
and that's all shown in this budget right here, in the personnel cost.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good, that's just, all I do is do.
alright, and then we have vehicle maintenance,
Vehicle maintenance has 0.95% of a person. It has Troy at 50%, Tommy at 20%, and Cletus at 25%.
Okay. Well, that's,
okay, moving on,
that's what we do, I know.
this is our debt service, and this is basically, the loan payment that we're projecting for 2021.
And in 2021, we finalized 2 loans.
Yes, the,
We finished paying off 2 loans in 2021.
yes.
That's why it's
That's
Thank
why
you,
it's
many
so
years of
small.
payment. It's not like it's an economy.
There ought to be a hallelujah out by that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why it's so small.
that's why 21 went way down. Right?
Yes,
Those are
yes.
both water loans?
Yeah,
One's water, I
the
know.
water and the sewer, yeah.
Water and sewer.
Yeah, water, sewer. That'll help the water department.
And then, yeah, and we already talked about the transfer out,
Yeah.
so we're just gonna move on. And then this portion of the debt, it's for the general fund, because, based on the agreement, 17% of those loans are pulled from the general fund, and the rest is from the water and sewer.
Okay, now say that again, I'm sorry, I was thinking.
The debt service,
Yeah,
17% is from general fund, based on the loan agreement. 17% is pulled from the general fund, and the remaining is pulled from the water and.
because that's our revenue. Okay,
Okay. So, we are in,
We're in small print again. I'll tell you that.
Zoom in a little bit, yeah, up there at least.
well,
Maybe read that a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
Lot better.
this is for, yeah.
And I brought it for me, I'm not insinuating it.
Well, that helps, thank you.
I need it myself.
so I can bring up the figures.
Well, for me, when you get into these enterprise funds, other than the pass-through rate from the county, that's been accounted for. Our increase from the county on wholesale, that's been accounted, we've gotten that number,
Yes, sir.
11 cents.
11 cents a gallon.
On sewer only, water did not change. And I'm actually working on writing the, because
So
we gotta do
so
it
we
through
do
ordinance.
that pass-through, and then we're gonna be able to project enough money to,
Yes,
so we don't need any kind of increase.
yes, sir, other than the pass through. And I'm working on getting the ordinance put together for
Yeah.
that for the next meeting, so it can be a first reading or whatever.
And for Darryl and Sharon, just quickly, we buy water from Bay County, we're a wholesale, we just buy our water. The pass-through we're talking about is if they increase our rate, we pass it on to our customers.
Gotcha.
okay,
And then based on our rate schedule, obviously they've run some numbers here that show that we're gonna take in enough, we're gonna have enough customers to
Yes, sir.
make our paper.
The customer base for water is based on 2,000 services. Right now, we're sitting at 1,500. But you gotta take into account, we have 3 big condos, a El Governor campground, Farmdale, all that's not been accounted for yet. That's another 300 or 400 units when you add all that up. So easily we will be at 2,000. We was at 2,100 right before the hurricane. So we're going to, if not succeed what we had before the hurricane on the water revenue. On the water. The number of services, I'm sorry.
And we're keeping up with, we're not running short of water.
No, sir. Me and Mario
I mean, meaning our allotment, we're allowed so many gallons.
yeah, the water, we're limited to 3 million gallons a day of water. The issue where the allotment you're thinking of comes into is on the sewer.
Sewer side, you're right, on sewer.
And we're running good on that side too. I track that daily. So, the water, we're limited by what the meter can give us, how much we can pull out as fast as we can take it. So. And there is an increase of 40,000 in the revenues, in the expenditure side because of the amount of water we're using, consistently increasing every month. So we had to compensate for that on the amount of water we're buying from the county. So.
and you gotta kinda average that, do you average that over the year, because in the wintertime, water use goes down a lot?
Our highest consumption in July, this past month, we pushed out just over 11 million gallons in 1 month. July 18, which was right before the hurricane, we pushed out just over 13. So our biggest month here is obviously July for water, and you can see we're almost running just about where we were before the hurricane. So,
That's hard for me to understand, because there's 50% of the houses are still
well, the
not.
same thing on the garbage. The garbage rates are
Keep in
75%
mind,
of what they used to be.
construction uses a lot of water and a lot of garbage too, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Then we got
And
three.
one issue with water
We got
is
what?
irrigation. There's a lot of irrigation going on in this now. There's a lot of water, St. Augustine grass.
Well, we're collecting for that.
Oh, yes, sir.
Well, you know, we're-
I'll gladly give it to them.
Okay. All right. Well, for me, as long as what we're taking in is not less than what we're paying out on the enterprise funds, I'm good.
Yeah.
It is showing
There is a deficit on
A
the
deficit,
water department
which-
budget,
Okay.
because there is in capital underwater, we had the water plant SCADA. We cannot get through FEMA because they replaced what's currently there. To bring it online with what the lift station SCADA has, it's all remote control and everything, it's gonna run us about $9,000-10,000 to upgrade it. That's in capital, we have part of it back though. The biggest capital line outlay we have is Hatley Drive. The water main going to Hatley Drive is currently 2 inch that we repair, almost like we do Oleander. We had an issue a couple Fridays ago, we was out for almost the whole day. I went ahead and done some numbers and put in a proposed number to replace that water main with a 6 inch. And that'll add fire protection at the end of Hatley Drive, as the fire chief can tell you. Nearest fire hydrant is on 15th Street, it's almost 1,000 feet to the end of Hatley Drive. That'll actually help with the insurance for them homeowners also at the same time. That's the biggest expense in the water department, is the capital for that water line project.
Expect FEMA to kick in anything for that?
I thought we'd do Dewberry and we're not.
Yeah, they would replace the 2-inch line.
Yeah, they would replace the two, but the two will not add fire suppression. And fire suppression is one of the bigger issues that when I was working in that neighborhood the other day, Mr. Shockey and them, they were talking about it. And, you know, the one cutting up their driveway, every time the water line breaks into fire protection, so.
Well, let me ask you this, because since we are talking about the deficits here, and when it comes to enterprise funds, 30% of separate fund for all Hurricane Michael stuff, with the exception that you can't do that with the enterprise funds. If it's insurance reimbursement or if it's FEMA reimbursement from the enterprise fund, it's gotta go in there, so we gotta treat it a little bit different there. So we do have to look at any of these and liable reimbursement. Do you expect any reimbursement from these expensive repairs and maintenance is high? I know it's probably because they're expensive things we normally capitalize, because we have a higher
When
threshold.
we did the budget, we caught, and there is expenditures for the water meters that have to be replaced that are still pending
Mhm.
installation, because we don't get paid for them until we actually do the work.
Right,
Them are there, but up front, we have to have
sure.
the money to purchase, I mean, 100 water meters is $50,000.
So what we,
So,
so what we can look at, and that would be an estimate, right, for the purposes of presenting a budget that, isn't a deficit, because I think there will be some FEMA reimbursement of some kind in there, and maybe we can try to get an estimate on that number, because I think some of that will be reimbursed, unknown.
yeah, like I said, it's hard to guess and unknown.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
but, we need to discuss the fact that there is a negative on here in terms of the budget that's before us, and I think some of it may be
Well-
negated by that, right?
Well,
another
that's-
issue.
When I spoke to you about it, we talked about, the FEMA, that we wouldn't consider the reimbursement for FEMA and the expense, right? Because those would
They also,
match, right, so then.
what comes in is what goes out.
Right, and then I told you that it still have that deficit, but you were saying based on that 165, that's something that the council would have to
We have to figure out.
decide on.
One issue, and since he brought up the 100,000 in repairs and maintenance, I know that's a huge number versus the previous years. We have about 4 condos that have water meters that are no longer working properly. So we're losing revenue each month on them meters. Part of that 100,000 is to replace them big master meters. One master meter is anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 just for the meter by itself. So a big chunk of that repairs and maintenance is to get our meters accurate, because water meter is your cash register. If that ain't working right, you may bring in the right amount of money. Does that make sense? So, if we can get it where we're accurately metering this water, where we know how much we're bringing in, the revenue will probably go up, because right now we're estimating how much our condo is using. Condo uses a lot of water.
And when are we gonna know that? When are we gonna put those in?
Working on
We're in the process of doing it now.
Well, how do we, back to Keith, we don't need to approve a deficit.
We can't approve this.
No, I mean, that's why I think we need to, this.
Can y'all in-house get that where it's not a deficit?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
not, we need to discuss, even if we estimate that we get some FEMA amount, I think that there is some.
Like I said, I have to sit down with FEMA and figure it
Yeah,
out.
so
Just in the time frame of when the water line broke, and we did the work to this morning, me and you haven't met
No,
enough
that's
in the
fine.
time frame.
But,
There was a placeholder there to figure out where we go from there.
Yeah, and even if they, I understand we gotta spend the money up front and then get reimbursed, but we ought to match the revenue and expenses in this period.
Most of what's in repairs and maintenance, there is a bunch of meter replacement. There's about 125 meters. Them are not Hurricane FEMA. These are all the
Yeah,
ones
that's
along Georgia Avenue area. They are not.
Know where
FEMA
Jerry
damage.
lives?
That's what I was saying, like,
It's just
His
common.
repairs will not
I
be
had
covered
a
under FEMA at all.
conversation with Thomas and I was like, listen, there's a deficit here and like, there's no FEMA reimbursement in that budget because I even mentioned to you, are we gonna raise the bill, the rate to, you know, offset that? And you're like, that's something that is.
That's how we got figured out.
To the
Didn't have an
council.
answer right here in the next 30 seconds, I didn't have an answer, that's why.
Yeah.
So,
we
I
do,
mean, that's an issue that, I
But
guess
you
you
think
need
about
to
it, if
tell
I get-
them that.
I mean, I can get FEMA money tomorrow for $450,000.
yeah,
For the
Yeah,
water
what
tank, so
I'm
I gotta
saying is
figure out
that
where
your
we gonna
budget
get it.
is not reflecting, those two placeholder in the budget, that's for FEMA. This budget that we're operating on has nothing to do with like FEMA projects or anything, because that's what we talk about, like, I need all the expenses in there that.
That's
it's
why
not
I
gonna
have
be
nothing, that's why there's
reimbursed
nothing
for-
in the FEMA columns, because
Right,
they're not
and
FEMA
that's what I'm,
projects.
and that's what I'm saying, so we are currently, without FEMA in consideration, we are currently
In the
operating
negative $51,000.
in a negative, and that's something that you need to tell the council and what is it that you need to do so that we can, cause we cannot adopt a budget with the deficit. And the reason for that deficit was that 165,
Yes.
that was changed, that was not on the last budget.
Well,
Yeah,
then
that's-
between now and when we meet again or see this, that's an internal, I mean, we can't sit here and.
no, we need to discuss and have some, some sort of.
But what I'm trying to say is that repairs and maintenance of 100,000 has nothing to do with FEMA at all, period. Has nothing in that
That's what we
FEMA.
want to know if we did, and that's,
No,
we need to.
that's- I can't say it's FEMA when it's not. I'm not going
All
to.
of that?
No, well, he's talking about he's talking about the master meters for the condos,
Yeah.
and he's also talking about that replacement line on Hatley, because what did you say, 2 inch, isn't it?
It's currently a 2 inch and it keeps failing constantly. It's kind of like old Magnum. That's our biggest issues we're having is constantly having to repair that 2 inch. Tear up people's yards and cutting up sidewalks, our driveways, and everything else. It just needs to be the way we replace. But if we replace it, we need to go at least a 6 to add fire protection. That's why the price of it's so high. If we went back with a 2, you're looking at $60,000 for a 2 inch water main in. But you're not gonna gain nothing in the long term on that.
That's a lot of money there.
Well, then, we'll just leave, as far as, if it's council's good, let's just leave the water till we get massage the numbers, so to speak, how's that? And get us in a,
At the
And a
next
positive.
meeting, at the next meeting, we'll propose to have a solution.
yes. Hopefully without a rate increase. And then, we'll leave that.
Marie,
Okay, is that good with everybody? I mean, so,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, that's good.
all right, we're moving then where we're sewer.
we're going down to,
I might get my arm.
sewer.
Sewer, yeah, I can read that in black. Okay. Are we good with sewer? I mean, are we good with, I know we've got a lot of FEMA, I mean, a lot of help coming or with repairing a lot of sewer stuff.
And the good thing with this is we've pretty much replaced our entire sewer system, lift stations, power,
Yeah.
so.
The
we'll-
control panels of the lift station.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a couple years.
Okay, so this is showing 68,000, 67,500 to the good, again, using our same rate structure
Yes,
and customer count.
yes, sir. Yeah, the customer count's 1,100 on sewer because irrigation makes up the difference.
Right. Okay.
And again, the only capital that we have in here is a portion of the backhoe. We have a new pickup truck for public works, public utilities. And then we have the lift station by the mayor's house on Azalea. Them pumps need to be upgraded. And that's it for capital, which comes up to $65,000 in capital.
Got a new truck in there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is that out of impact fees?
The lift station upgrades
Yeah.
or the truck?
Or truck?
No, the truck can't be in impact fee. That's
Well,
not,
well,
we're not
Is
having.
is anything, we spending any impact fee?
The only impact we can spend would be the difference between the price of what a 6.5 horsepower pump costs versus a 5.5 horse. That makes a difference. So they, the $200 difference between the two pumps, impact's only gonna pay $400 on $10,000. So. Now, if the impact to pay for the full amount of the lift station upgrade, then the budget would go down by.
Do we have those impact fee dollars? Do we have that, is that anywhere on any of these sheets?
It should be in revenue.
Should be in the revenue side.
That's what I thought, oh yeah, I do see, I do see. Police, fire,
So police.
impact fees, I don't know, I'm in the, am I on the revenue, yeah. I don't see it. I see recreational. I see fire, I see police, I don't see any.
The impact fees would be in the revenue.
If you look under sewer and water, under, it's the fourth or fifth line item down, it says impact fees. And this is not showing a running.
Give me a number outside.
There is one in there.
Oh, there's not a number, and there's no number.
Correct, there is no number, it says, keep in mind, what we really should be showing here is what money we have available. This is just a projection of what money would come in for the year.
Right, I understand, I just didn't know if it was in here.
Put it this way, I can tell you that we have substantial funds available
I
for
thought-
water and sewer.
I thought,
We just have to use them for growth. And I don't
I
know,
understand.
here's a question, are you going from a 2-inch to a 6-inch, can we show that for growth?
That's the argument you could probably argue, because there is no houses there right currently,
Is
because all
there
got
a
destroyed.
future growth that could go at the end of that road?
Or there's a ditch at the end, so, I mean, you have land that's been developed, it was developed, that's gone now, there's nothing there, and they will rebuild back eventually.
We've always been creative.
So
to use
if you
our-
put a spin
that's
on it, you could probably make a portion of Hadley Drive due to impact, like we did Olean. That could be,
Yeah, there might be a way, let's.
the Middle East.
I'm just saying that we don't need to forget that we got those monies, and there's times
Mhm.
that we need to try to find.
But that's
a
why
way
with the
to
lift station
justify it.
upgrade, if we can use impact money to upgrade that lift station pump, because of Beacon Hills sewer that's coming through us, then that goes in,
Well,
goes under
then,
impact.
just don't forget to look at those.
Well-
That's all, that's my point.
We'll dig into where we have opportunities. to
There you
use
go.
impact fees.
All right,
So this is the page I've been looking for right here,
what's that? Sanitation,
Sanitation.
the last page.
the last page, all right, yeah, me and you both. Mainly because it's page 22, not because it was over.
No, it's the last page.
That's it. Oh, no. Another deficit,
Yes,
that's not good.
and, he added
What do we got?
capital,
The one capital is 20,000 for new dumpsters, to replace the big green commercial dumpsters that we have that are dented, damaged, and tore all to pieces all over town.
And can those be dented and damaged and all over pieces from town from the hurricane, or is that?
Again, how do you wanna work it?
I know they're damaged from the hurricane.
They are damaged from hurricane, but they were also damaged before the hurricane, so.
Well, I mean, the question is whether we got insurance or we got FEMA money for them. So if we did for that, then we could put a line in there to offset that. So we'll.
I don't know that part, I've never seen that insurance sheet that shows, I've heard we got money, but I don't know exactly what we got it for.
I don't know that we had dumpsters under insurance.
We did.
Let's, maybe not there, let's just look at the potential for some FEMA. I don't know that we'll get 60.
Well, we gotta find a way to get $31,000.
Well, in that 31,000, that there was proposed 2 new full-time employees for sanitation, because there's only 1 person per truck right now. So 2 of them positions, that 31,000 came from when the salaries were added for the 2 positions. That's where that 31,000 came from.
Well, we've got 6 approved sanitation positions.
We have currently 4.
We may have 4, but you have, from years past, isn't there 6 approved positions?
We've had total, in public works, there was total of 21 employees, we currently sit at 19. The two for public works that just got, were.
Well, how do you run 3 trucks?
One person per truck. That's why sanitation takes so
Well,
long.
we've
to
had-
shut. That's why sanitation takes so long, and that's why we're proposing putting 2 new trucks on there, so.
You talking about really 2 per truck, not your driver.
You got a driver, but I'm
Yeah,
talking
that's
slingers.
what I'm saying, you
A
say
driver
4.
and one
You
slinger.
gotta have 2.
Oh, 2
I'm
slingers,
not, I'm talking slingers, I'm talking drivers, I'm talking slingers.
All right. Okay. So we have 6 people.
We have 4 on the truck, we have 2 drivers and 2 slingers, that is it for sanitation. We have, you remember last year Jonathan Williams got let go last
Yeah,
summer?
yeah.
That took us from down to 5. We had 2 tent workers, they got moved to other departments. Because they had
Well, I
Philip
guess
and
my
Mary.
question is,
We
are we having
proposing-
to, are you requesting more sanitation workers?
We're looking to replace 2 sanitation workers.
Replace. Okay, replace what we had. That's what I thought, okay.
That was 7.1.
And that's where the 31 comes from.
You
Yeah.
have 19, then that'd be 4. We had, I thought that's what you said. Is that what you said? How many employees did we have? Did we have 17 or 19?
We currently have 19 employees public.
19, and we used to have
21.
21. When Philip and Mary left, they never got replaced.
So if you get 2 slingers and Tommy's getting 2, that's 4. That correct?
Yeah.
So that put us 23 instead of 21.
Right now, that department shows 7.2 people,
I had 2,
which is representing 6 full-time people, and then 20% of about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people.
If we could clone Kenny, we'd be in good shape.
Trust me, we're trying to figure out how to.
Not me.
Yes, sir.
Well-
That's true, man,
I guess my point is the council doesn't, we have approved positions that are unfilled. Where you put them isn't what's important to us. It's, you have those positions already approved. When you say you're adding to, we're replacing
We're
some
replacing.
employees. Okay. All right.
But they replaced 2 extra. Well, I mean, yes, if we go through this,
We lost Mary, we lost Philip, we never replaced those 2. We lost the slinger, never replaced him, and I think there was somebody else that, again, in my mind, I think we're pretty close. But then what helps us the most is when Philip left, his salary was here, and the people that are replacing
Right,
are here.
right.
So again, when you look at dollars, we're almost reducing the budget by $10,000.
I'm looking at people.
And I don't disagree that you're looking at people.
I'm looking at people and you're looking at dollars. We had 19, we got 17, and our proposed budget is was 23. The 21, I probably don't mind,
No, we had 21, we lost 2, now we're currently
but
19.
19, and in this budget, though, we're proposing for 4.
That takes us to 23 total.
That's what I'm saying. So
I
I
don't
mean,
know where
2 more
17
than what we
came
had.
Before the hurricane, there were 21 full-time employees in Public Works County, Philip Hall.
I think, well, next meeting, I didn't know about that. And I figured this leader didn't go over that meeting. So, what I'll do is, I think if we go back to 21, that'd be enough. I don't know how we can split them up between the salaries.
So what did we have before, what was the?
21.
21 on October the 9th of 2018. 21.
Yes, sir. Now, you had 23 technically, because you had 2 temp workers that you hired here in Summerville.
Yeah, but we always had approved temp workers. That was part of the budget. That wasn't just on the fly. They were part
Now,
of the
before my
budget.
time, I don't know what. There was 5 full-time employees on sanitation the day of the hurricane. Jonathan Williams was let go in 2019. That dropped us to 4. Nobody's filled that place. The position that was filled by Jonathan was filled by our water operator when we hired Kevin back in November. That position technically was refilled by a different position, because we had to have a water operator. When we had me, and that was it for a year. They had, by state, we had to have another operator. That filled that position technically.
Right.
So that took us back to 19 where we're sitting at now. And then we was at 21, Philip and Mary left, they never got replaced. Me and Tommy replaced him. So we stayed at 19 even though they left. So that creates there's technically 2 openings in Public Works right now. We're proposing to add 2 more to that to make it a total of 23.
Okay, okay.
So we need to add 2 total
That's,
positions.
okay. All right, so. Well, the workload dictates we gotta have those folks. I mean, I don't know how else you can, what can we do?
You have the equivalent of 2 full-time workers in the water department, the equivalent of 2 full-time workers in the sewer department, and the equivalent of 6 in sanitation. I don't know how else to skin the cat, because the cat is the cat.
Okay. Seems like we're just as busy, if not busier. And we don't have near the households, near the businesses, it's just amazing.
And won't, you know, that's me, it really doesn't look like we're busy, but I think we, in my opinion on this, and I reckon I'll do it, trying the next meeting. If we had 21, let's go back to what we had. The 2 extra, I'm not saying we don't need them, we probably do. And if it's in the budget, I'm for that too, that's good, but a little deficit, we said we needed because of.
Whatever, we can't have in the deficit side, I'm willing, me personally, I'm willing to see what we can do that makes sense before we meet again. Okay? But there's no sense having employees if they don't have stuff to work with. You know, material and so and our employees are supposed to be, come back with what you think we gotta have to get the job done and not be in the rig. How's that? That easy? Is that a fair way of saying that? That's how I feel. Because I'm certainly not for a rate increase in any of those enterprise funds.
That's where we got to figure out where to get money from. Work that.
Well, I've suggested one place and I think you ought to look hard at it. I think there's a way to do that. Okay? I mean, Monique, you sat out, I guess that means, did you quit or did you just go over there and sit down?
You know, you guys were so
I know,
excited
well-
to reach the last page, so I kind of just.
Well,
I let you guys have it.
Darryl said last page.
she's gone. Well, I salute everyone's effort for helping us through this. This is not, it's never easy and it's compounded by multiple things. But, let's talk a minute about our next meeting, what we would like to see. I think we've pretty well, or I'm satisfied that the internal numbers of the departments, I mean, they are what they are. They gotta have fuel, they gotta have, I think what we should focus on is, are we satisfied that we're gonna try to sell the 8 meals to the public? And if we now can digest some of this at our own pace before the next meeting, we should be able to condense that to a relatively simple discussion. I think we've done what I call the grunt work. We've done it. The enterprise funds, y'all gonna come back with something on those. As far as the general fund, we need to think about, Keith and Monique said it best. I mean, there is a little overflow, but there's really not. I mean, we're fooling ourselves to think there's extra. because,
That overflow will go to a match.
oh, absolutely, and quickly, so, thank y'all for preparing and going through this. Any other questions? If not, Daryl's ready, he's gonna take a nap.
Daryl's hungry.
Daryl's hungry, yeah, who called that for pizza?
I don't know.
Oh, me, what line item is that?
It's your time, bye.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna stay with the same schedule, we're gonna wait for 2 weeks, is that gonna give us enough time? You got that September, I wrote down September 17th, so we've got time
Next
for
workshop.
workshop, change it from meeting to workshop, so that people don't think we're voting on something.
Yeah.
And then, if we have to schedule something in between, if we aren't satisfied after the next meeting, we still have time to do that.
You still have one more meeting, one more regular meeting that you could
Yeah,
have.
if necessary.
Oh, that's right, today, I'm thinking, I'm off a month. Okay, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, everyone, and we will,
Do this again.
yeah, but we're gonna be good at it next time.
I typically do one vacation a year. That's a big vacation.
Right?
We're gone for 2 weeks.
We're gonna be good at it, Bonnie,
First
so,
meeting in September, I'm planning on being here, and I just want to make sure that you knew that. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, I'll be gone from September the 1st to September the 14th.
Oh, you're going for my birthday.
Well, I will get a note from you on your birthday, then, how's that? If need be, I can call into the meeting.
Daryl,
So,
we
again,
made it.
hopefully I don't have to, but if push comes to shove, I can
Nobody,
always be available by.
nobody
by
cut
phone.
something down.
Well, thank you for that.
Everybody handled that.
Have a good time.
And, let me give you this, one of the things that, you heard during the meeting that I mentioned names in departments and things
Yes.
like that. That's what this refers to.
Okay.
And, I mentioned that I was gonna give this to you.
Yes,
You
thank
heard
you.
during the meeting that I was referring to people and percentages and things like that.
Right.
That's what all these are all about. And
Okay.
then that down there at the bottom is just the total number that matches the budget. And then the other thing that I was, again, I alluded to this in the meeting, in 2021, this is the total that we're proposing for all the employees' salaries and insurance and all those other fun things. This is what we had for 2020. So you can see from this year to this year, we are up $37,000, but remember, when we proposed that 3% raise, that's a $50,000 add. So
Right.
the net is, we added a little bit, but keep in mind when we didn't replace Philip and Mary,
Right.
and we hired people that are pretty close to minimum wage, that's why we're able to keep budget pretty darn tight.